Welcome to our webinar on long COVID and its effects on employment. I hope everybody is well, and thanks for coming along today. We've split the time available into three parts, and what we have today are, first one is long COVID and how it might affect employment. Secondly, a section on well-being and mindfulness to enable people to keep calm and remain in control as much as possible. And thirdly, a detailed look at those affected by COVID who may now be unemployed, furloughed, or working from home. Next slide, please. Thank you. So before we start, to help you, some tips. Personal gains. Please make sure that you're in a space that is private. Headphones may be helpful. If you would like to contribute, please write in the chat box. There'll be an opportunity for questions at the end. Keep your camera on or off, that's your choice entirely. And turn your camera off if you have issues with sound or quality or image quality. And finally, if you lose connection, just click back on the same link to return. Thank you. Next slide, please. So to introduce ourselves, first, there are three of us delivering the webinar today. Thank you again for coming along. My name is Matt Pocknell. I work out of St Pancras Hospital, and I lead the employability team there. And I work within the IAPT department, and IAPT is the Increased Access to Psychological Therapies. Rena.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming to this webinar, Return to Work webinar workshop today. My name is Rena Deans from the Recovery College. My role is I am a peer learning worker, and my role is to support students to come to the course and set the learning goals and for supporting them for the recovery journey. And we offer a free online workshop at the moment, and related to the topic of mental and physical well-being. And it's all welcome, and it's free for people who are residents of Camden and Islington, and any connection with the borough is also welcome. And we have a website for the courses available, so please have a look at our Recovery College website. We have running the several good recovery workshops. So yeah, just have a look at that. But today I am delivering the course on the returning to work with Matt and Robert. So I'm handing on to you, Robert.
You're on mute, Rob.
Yeah, I'm trying to take it up.
Yeah, you're good.
Good. Sorry. Hi everyone. I'm.
Oh, you're back. You're back on mute, Rob.
Right.
Go.
Sorry. Technicalities. Yeah, an employment advisor, not a techie, as you can tell. So I'll be talking about the return to work after COVID. I'm part of Matt's team, so an employment advisor in IAPT in Camden. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Rob. Thank you. Right, today is designed to provide support and highlight services available to those impacted by the pandemic. We want to look at methods designed to assist with well-being, in addition to guidance to those having lost their jobs, those that are furloughed, and those that are working from home. And we hope you find this useful. Next slide, please. As said, the aim of today is to provide support and highlight services. But what is long COVID? It's certainly significant. And according to the Office for National Statistics, on the 6th of March this year, 1.1 million people were suffering from it. Symptoms include extreme tiredness, fatigue, shortness of breath, chest pains or tightness, problems with memory and concentration or brain fog, difficulty sleeping, insomnia, heart palpitations, dizziness, pins and needles, joint pain, depression and anxiety, tinnitus, earaches, feeling sick, diarrhea, stomach aches, loss of appetite, high temperature, cough, headaches, sore throat, changes to sense of smell or taste, and rashes. So a horribly long list. So long COVID is defined as having symptoms that last for longer than 12 weeks. The effects of the symptoms causes fatigue, breathlessness, poor mobility and nausea. And these can be permanent, can scar the lungs and affect energy levels. Overall, it attacks energy and performance levels, leaving a listless feeling. Long COVID studies commissioned may take 2 to 3 years to conclude. And worldwide, up to 10 million people are predicted to be affected. Symptoms developed are similar to those suffering from chronic fatigue syndrome. As we've seen, this has been and will continue to be very expensive, with treatment costs running into hundreds of millions. Next slide, please. So, long COVID can have a devastating effect. Moving on to look at how it affects employment, currently MPs are campaigning to have it recognised as an occupational disease, and for those affected to receive compensation. It is likely to be ongoing and fraught with difficulties, not least because it is not yet recognised as a diagnosed condition. To be classified as a disability, it has to negatively affect the long term for 12 months or more. Therefore, over time, it will be recognised that a person has been left with such severe conditions from long COVID that they have indeed been left with a disability. Long COVID will need to negatively affect the body for 12 months. Over time, it is likely that it will be covered by the Equality Act 2010. So what is the Equality Act 2010? This seeks to ensure equal treatment for people with a protected characteristic compared to others without that characteristic. So, am I likely to be covered by the Equality Act? Well, a person has a disability if they have a physical or mental impairment that has a substantial or long-term adverse effect on the ability to carry out day-to-day activities. It is defined as long-term if there is limited information available about long COVID. It's defined as long-term if it's likely to last 12 months or for the rest of life, and there is limited information available. However, the similarity to chronic fatigue syndrome suggests that some severely affected are likely to be covered. In the context of long COVID, there are 2 areas for consideration. Firstly, failure to make reasonable adjustments. So what are reasonable adjustments? It's a duty under the Equality Act to take reasonable steps to remove any disadvantage to a disabled person. These include physical changes to the workplace. Employers are expected to remove barriers that make it harder for a disabled person to contribute fully at work. Adjustments may include breaks or working from home. If not covered by the Equality Act, we do expect employers to be supportive and to facilitate a return to work. Secondly, discrimination in respect of other characteristics. Recently, researchers from King's College have found that women under 50 are 50% more likely to suffer from long COVID than men in the same age group. Older age is a risk factor for those of Black, Asian and other minority ethnic groups that are disproportionately affected. Statutory sick pay, so sick leave and long COVID. From 13th of March 2020, SSP is available for all employees diagnosed with COVID-19. It is payable from day 1 of sickness and to those being unable to attend work. If you do not have contracted sick pay, so long as you earn £118 or more a week, you should be entitled to it. SSP, sorry. Returning to work. Employers should seek occupational health advice, which may determine a return to work, and other reasonable adjustments may also be necessary. Next slide, please. On this slide, we have a video, and it looks at the effects of a sufferer from the effects of suffering from the effects of long COVID and her struggles in the workplace. So, and when you're ready, that'd be great.
Oh no. 38.9. I don't know what to do. I actually don't know what to do. This is the highest temperature I have ever had. My muscles ache all the time. I feel dizzy every day. I feel like I want to vomit every day. My journey started with a headache, the same headache that I now have 10.5 months on. And I became gravely unwell with COVID at the age of 27. Imagine running a marathon with no finish line at all. So I just feel that I am running every single day, entirely exhausted, and I have no idea when this will end. Got a sore throat. I wake up like this most mornings, and if I don't wake up like this, then my tonsils just feel really, really sore.
So obviously you haven't been able to return to work. What impact has that had on you?
I've never cried so much. The guidance says that coronavirus absence or coronavirus related absence should be full pay for the duration of the pandemic. But how employers interpret that is sort of up to their discretion. So I actually don't know how long I'm going to be on full pay for. I don't know if my contract's going to be terminated. You know, I've got a mortgage, you know, I have a partner, I have a family, you know, how am I going to sustain all of that?
Thank you. That's lovely. Next slide, please. Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. Thank you. I hope that was useful and helpful. Having looked at the effects of long COVID, where is it possible to obtain support and guidance? So from your GP, one of 60 long COVID centres in the UK, and your GP can refer you to your local IAPT group. IAPT is increased access to psychological therapies. As I said, that is those are accessed via your GP. And the links below, should anybody want them, we can make available at the end of the session and email out to people. So hopefully those are going to be useful, and they're all government links, which are really quite explanatory. And one of them there is there to highlight where the nearest long COVID centre is. Thank you. Next, my colleague Rena will look at valuable and extremely useful wellbeing and mindfulness advice and guidance. To us, it is clear that mindfulness does underpin everything we are looking at today. So I'm going to hand over to Rena now for some guidance on mindfulness and wellbeing. Over to you, Rena.
Thank you very much, Matt, and thank you for showing a video of the lady who is suffering from long COVID. It is very painful to see that people suffer so long time, and the not knowing where these things end. It's the life. The sounds like life is a struggle and no ending. But there is always a hope that we can manage our own well-being in our unique individual way. So today I would like to talk about how we can maintain well-being even in this difficult pandemic situation. So first of all, I would like to talk about how we can identify with our thoughts and emotions in our daily life. Sometimes we struggle with emotions because we think we should not be having them, that there is something wrong with us for having them, or perhaps that we, if we really allow ourselves to feel them, they may challenge us. For instance, some people really struggle with feelings of not being good enough, perhaps comparing themselves to others who may be on similar journeys and appear to be doing it better. For many of us, these feelings and thought patterns have been around for a very long time and may happen automatically. What may be helpful to consider is that we are not our thoughts and feelings. We are the observer, the one watching them happen. If I get the thought I am not good enough, for instance, that does not mean that it is true or that this is what I truly believe. If I notice that I am having the thought, I can acknowledge it as something my mind has produced, but I don't have to fight it or try to change it or argue with it even. I don't need to do anything about it, just only to observe it. People often find that when we simply create space for our difficult experiences and allow them to unfold without resisting or judging them, they often start to lose their intensity. So let's try an exercise now called where we make room for our present experience, breathe into it and see what happens. The following exercise may help us to achieve this. So it's called Mindfulness exercise 5 senses. Some of you may have it. It's in other words, it's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. It doesn't involve the breathing exercise. So people who are having suffering from the long COVID symptoms can enjoy doing this exercise. So I am going to demonstrate this, imagining that you are in front of me, although I can't see you, I'm afraid. So if you feel comfortable, you can try this technique. But if you find it difficult to do, just look at what I do, and maybe you can try in your own time later on. So I start. So after difficult or traumatic experiences, it's normal to experience flashbacks, anxiety, and other uncomfortable experiences. Grounding techniques help control these experiences by turning attention away from thoughts, memories, or worries, and refocusing on the present moment. So using the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique, you will purposefully take in the details of your surroundings using each of your senses. Strive to notice small details that your mind would usually tune out, such as distant sounds or the texture of the ordinary pattern. So please skip, as I said, please skip this exercise when you do not feel comfortable doing it. So feel free to join us if you are up to it. So please join this exercise only when you think you are ready. So you can sit in comfortable place. You can just relax and adjust the seat and feeling comfortable, maybe feet on your floor, and just to be comfortable sitting position. And so I would like to ask you, what are the 5 things you can see? Look for small details such as pattern on the ceiling, the way light reflects off a surface, or a pattern you never noticed. So please just pay attention of your surroundings. Now I'm just going to move on to the next. What are 4 things you can feel? So you can notice the sensation of clothing on your body, or the sun on your skin. It's sunny here as well. And or the feeling of the chair you are sitting in. Pick up a pattern and examine its weight, texture, and other physical qualities. Now, what are the 3 things you can hear? What are 3 things you can hear? Pay special attention to the sounds your mind has tuned out, such as a ticking clock, distant traffic, or trees blowing in the wind. Now, what are 2 things you can smell? What are 2 things you can smell? Try to notice smells in the air around you, like an air freshener or freshly mowed grass. You may also look around for something that has a scent, such as flower or an unlit candle. And lastly, but not in the least, what is one thing you can taste? What is one thing you can taste? Carry a gum or candy, or small snacks for this step, or pop one in your mouth and focus your attention closely on the flavors. Well, how you feel right now. I hope you can feel the difference before the exercise and after the exercise. I just hoping that in this exercise, I invite you to engage in some self-care practices. For example, identifying a difficult emotion and doing one or a number of things to manage or deal with how you feel. Now, I would like to share my experience of becoming aware of difficult emotions and self-care technique. Recently, my friend and I started walking together every week in a local area for 1 hour. We haven't met during the lockdown, although we met online to chat regularly, which was not the same than when we see each other face to face. So we both like walking and share our interests. While we walk with masks on and social distancing, we talk about all sorts of things, from our worries and frustrations, complaints of our life. We sometimes bring our own cooking and share with each other. And my friend went to pick up chestnuts one day in the park. She steamed them and gave them to me. It was lovely. And they are delicious. And I made my handmade miso paste, that fermented bean paste, brought it to her, and she made the miso soup with it, and she liked it. Our weekly walking is not only for keeping active, but also for our well-being, feeling reassured that we are not alone in this second or third lockdown, which is easing right now, which is good news. And also I felt empowered that we can still do things we can enjoy together and stay connected online and offline, and feeling hopeful for the future. And I hope that you are able to give your feelings some attention and take care of yourselves. And please feel free to use any element of grounding exercise when difficult emotions come up during this webinar. And now I would like to hand over to Rob, and he can talk about unemployment and furlough and working from home. Over to you, Rob.
Thanks, Serena. Those were really useful exercises. So I'm talking about return to work, giving practical support and information. This covers 3 main topics. So it's returning to work if you've become unemployed as a consequence of the pandemic, returning to your job after being furloughed, and returning to workplace after working from home. So the first part of that is returning to work if you become unemployed as a consequence of the pandemic. If I could have the next slide, please. So what we've found is that looking for work without planning will take longer and can be confusing. However, with a bit of structure, looking for a job can be straightforward. The structure that I use is I abbreviate to an SRO. It's a situation, a response, and an outcome. So have it clear in your mind what you want and the steps you need to take to get there. We've set out the steps you need to take to increase your chance of success, and I'll take you through how to apply for a job, starting with the importance of identifying your ideal position, right through to details such as finding a recruitment agency. It's the same process that I've used working with people in Camden for the last 8 years. And this is our The next slide, please. So can I have the next slide, please? The situation. Essentially, you're looking for a job, and that's a project in itself, and you're more likely to keep on top of this if you treat it as such. This is your response to the situation. Dedicate some time each day to your job searching project, even if sometimes it's just half an hour of reading through vacancies. Be prepared that unless you're very lucky and strike gold immediately, finding the right job can take time. If you're currently not employed, you may need to find interim work while you strive towards your goal. Speaking of which, what exactly is your goal? Your target's clear. I need a new job, or I want a new career. Now you can start refining the end goal. Beyond gaining employment, what is important to you about this new role? What would your ideal job look like? Think about different things. So the industry, location and distance, salary, benefit, experience sure to gain, opportunities, training and development, working hours, potential organizations, and company size. It's also important to include timeframes and milestones. You can't predict the specific times you'll find vacancies, but you can set yourself targets such as write your CV or visit through recruitment agencies. And this should help you feel in control of the process. When you start sending out applications, it's a good idea to keep track of what you've sent and where you've sent it. You should also note that the closing dates, but we'll talk more about that later. Before you embark on your job search, however, you'll need a CV. So if I could have the next slide, please. So preparing your CV and cover letter. So if it's been a while since you last applied for a job, you'll need to create an up-to-date CV, potentially from putting all your experience and qualifications down on paper. It's really useful and can be confidence boosting exercise as it helps you focus on your talents. It's also a great way to remind yourself of relevant skills. Writing an effective CV takes time, and it's worth spending that time. After all, it's your shop window, your advertisement, and your opening sales pitch. Be prepared to keep tweaking it to suit specific jobs. And if you're going for 2 jobs that are both in, say, retail, one may require more emphasis on product knowledge and the other on customer skills. Shuffle your CV around to give the most relevant skills the most weight. A cover letter should never be standard, as its purpose is to highlight the selling points on your CV that make you ideal for that particular role. Having said that, you need to move swiftly in the world of job applications, so at least have a template set up with your contact details. At the end of this session, I will give you contact details for our support agencies that can help with CV letters. So the next slide, please. So you'll have a template CV and a good idea about the job you want. Now it's time to find it. There are lots of ways to approach this. Most job searches use a combination of methods. Different industries approach recruitment in different ways, but broadly, here are the main places where you'll find job opportunities. So online job sites, company websites, recruitment agencies, job centres, networking, career fairs, and speculative letters. So if I'll go through each one of those kind of line by line for more details. So job applications online. With an online job searching portal, you can search for employment vacancies and post your CV so recruiters can find you. This is really straightforward, and it's a great way to create a short list of suitable jobs. You can refine your job searching by keywords and locations, and then it's simply a case of hitting the apply button for the positions that appeal to you. The organisations that have posted vacancies may have different application processes, but there are clear instructions for each. Companies also advertise their vacancies or indicate that they're open for speculative inquiries on their own websites. So keep tabs on organisations that appeal to you by checking in once a week. Recruitment agencies, we'll look at these more in depth in the next section. However, an additional point, don't discount local job centres. If you're looking for a job in a specific area, you never know. Networking and career fairs. A careers fair is a fantastic network A fantastic networking opportunity, as well as the chance to shop around for the firms who have current recruitment drives, trade national and local press job advertisements, and speculative approaches. Because you already have a CV and cover letter ready to go, why not send them out to some companies you like the look of? These could be organizations you admire or would like to work for, or even ones you've just read about in the local paper. If you ask yourself, what have I got to lose? The answer is simply the cost of a stamp or the time it takes to write an email. The worst that can happen is that you'll get replies saying that they don't have any vacancies at the moment. So for me, that's definitely worth a try. The next slide, please. So the next one is looking through recruitment agencies. So a recruitment agency's role is to provide an outsourced service for organizations finding suitable candidates for their vacancies. If you walk into an agency and say, please help me find a job, they'll interview you, match your skills and qualifications with their database of available roles. The agency that puts you forward for the role as a kind of broker. Most agencies will help you with interview techniques and CV writing. Some also specialize in providing temporary roles to fill short-term vacancies. This can actually be useful to help you build up your portfolio when you're starting out. How do you find the right agency? Go to the next slide, please. So how to find a recruitment agency. A good agency can give you the right support and help finding a job. Track that your job hunting partner by asking your friends and can recommend a good agency and maybe has a specific contact within that company. Hitting the high street, check out your local branches and pop in to book an appointment. Which ones are welcoming and helpful? What jobs are advertised in their windows or reception? You can Google it. This is especially helpful if you're looking for an industry that may not have obvious branches. You can read trade publications, the recruitment ads posted by a specific agency. If so, that's one to pursue for your industry. Always keep in mind that agencies work for the recruiting organization, so their goal is to find the right candidates. Doesn't mean that they won't give you lots of expert support. A good agency is worth its weight in gold with wise words, but they won't necessarily take a risk and put you forward if they don't think you're right. Next slide, please. So to follow up your job applications. Once you've sent off your CV, then you've heard nothing. Do you wait a bit longer? Do you chase it or write it off? If you've not reached a closing date yet, or it's only just passed, leave it for now. If you haven't heard anything in a few days after D-Day, it's acceptable to get in touch. After all, there's nothing wrong with looking keen. However, don't take this as license to call several times until you're here for definite. It's a fine line between persistence and pestering as far as a busy organization is concerned. Also bear in mind that this part of the process can take ages. Some organizations don't contact unsuccessful applicants at all. They may say this in their ads or application packs to check before you chase. If you simply can't wait, you can call with a good reason to get in touch and find out the progress that way. These good reasons could be to advise the recruiter that you're away for a few days, or that you or your referee has a new contact detail. Next slide, please. What happens next? This is the outcome. This is the O in SRO. So if you've been invited to proceed to the next stage, congratulations. You're already ahead of much of the competition. Accept any invite promptly. If you receive a letter or an email explaining why you've been unsuccessful, thank them for considering you for the application and let them know that you'd like to be considered for similar positions in the future. As we said earlier, what have you got to lose? Above all, keep your confidence while you're looking for a job. If it's a no, put it down to experience and move on to the next application. One day soon, it will be a yes. Next slide, please. So, in summary, spend some time planning your job search in advance and think through the practicalities. This can make a huge difference when it comes to looking for work. Remember your SRO, your situation, your response, and the outcome. And remember, your response will always have an input into the outcome. So top job hunting tips: set your goals based on both your aspirations and the practicalities. get a plan in place with timelines and milestones. Prepare your CV and cover letter and be ready to tweak them for different roles. Send spec letters if appropriate. Register a recruitment agent. Track your applications and follow them up. If it's a no, reply politely and say you'd like to be considered in the future. If it's a yes, act promptly and research interview techniques. Using SRO again to repeat the process. Situation, you've got an interview coming up, response, research, plan journeys, questions to answer, approach an employer, an employment specialist for help, and the outcome, you give yourself the best chance of getting a job. So next slide are links for further support. There are names and numbers on there. I think this presentation will be available online. So if you haven't got a pen and paper or you can't take a screenshot, you'll be able to grab that later. So next slide, please. So that's looking for work if you're returning. What I'm going to talk about now is returning to the workplace if you've been furloughed or if you've been working from home. I think a lot of people don't know the difference outside of the kind of people that are doing it. Many people are feeling confused about it and going back, and it's changing weekly. You know, yesterday lots of stuff opened up, but the next June 21st, when people are looking for changing again, no one's really sure what that's going to hold. So what I thought I'd do is approach the next part as a kind of a frequently answered questions. So yeah, I'll go for it. So if you're returning to the workplace after being furloughed or working from home, should I still be working at home? So like I said, the world changed yesterday again, and some people are back at work. I have somebody I'm working with at the moment that had to start work at 1 minute past midnight last night because the day changed over. So the rules in England say that you should continue to work from home where you can, despite the stay-at-home rule lifting recently. If your job can't be done from home, you may travel into the workplace. You don't have to be classed as a critical worker, but you should not go into the workplace if you're self-isolating because you have coronavirus symptoms, if you've been in contact with someone who has tested positive, or if you're in quarantine after traveling. So can I have the next 2 slides, please? Should be on question 2 now. Thank you. So question 2, what does gender shielding mean? In England and Wales, people that are extremely clinically vulnerable have no requirement to shield or had no requirement to shield from the 1st of April. What some people don't realise is you might be eligible for furlough until the 30th of September if your employer agrees. However, the end of shielding means you are no longer qualified for statutory sick pay or employment support allowance unless you're sick or incapable of work. The NHS has published advice for those thinking of returning to work after shielding. If your job requires you to be in the workplace, your employer should explain what measures have been introduced to keep you safe at work, carry out individual risk assessments for your return, and look at adjustments to reduce the risk of transmission, such as transferring you to another role where home working is possible. Next slide, please. Question 3, what if I have children or care for someone? If you can't work due to caring responsibilities resulting from coronavirus, including needing to provide childcare, the government has confirmed that you can ask to be put on furlough. However, employers do not have to agree to this. Some organisations may let employees take time off to look after their children, either as annual leave or unpaid paternal leave. You may also be able to arrange work part-time or change to your working patterns. As you said, when I come to the end of this section, I will give you details of support agencies again that can help with those decisions and kind of what your rights are as well. So next slide, please. Question 4, what must employers do to ensure your safety? So employers should take steps to reduce the risk of transmission, as well as complete a COVID risk assessment. Guidelines set out strict measures which employers must follow in different sectors. They include minimizing the number of unnecessary visits to the workplace, ensuring that staff observe 2 meter social distancing wherever possible. If it's not viable, staff should observe 1 meter social distancing with additional precautions. Frequent cleaning of surfaces, objects and communal areas, extra hand washing facilities, introducing one-way systems to minimize contact, using back-to-back or side-to-side working rather than face-to-face whenever possible, staggering start and end times, and also all retail staff and customers must wear face coverings unless they're exempt. There is detailed guidance for a number of different industries, including construction, hospitality, and manufacturing. You can find these on the Health and Safety Executive's website. Again, details will be at the end for that as well. Next slide, please. So, can your boss force you to go to work? So this is probably the most question that myself and my colleagues have had in the kind of run up to the end of lockdown ending. So whether returning from furlough or working from home, it will depend on a range of factors, including the individual and your circumstances, the type of work and the work environment. Employers have a duty of care to all their staff and must treat people reasonably and fairly. So we'll need to consult with individuals to be as flexible as possible when dealing with any concerns staff may have over attending their workplaces. So those are the main 5 questions we've been asked, and the next few slides are just basically kind of around planning your return. So if we have the next slide, please. So everyone's situation is unique. However, as you approach your return to work, there are some ideas that will give anyone the best chance of getting back to work and staying mentally healthy over the coming months. Again, you can use the situation, your response, and the outcome. So the situation is you have to go. Your response is we're going to make a plan, and the outcome will be that you're feeling safe and ready to return. So next slide, please. So thinking about your job and your situation, does anything need to change to help you do the job well? If you haven't been told what to expect, ask which steps have been taken to create a safe work environment. It can be helpful to think about what will happen on your first day back. So stuff like, how will you get to work? Will anything be different as you enter the building? Who will be there? Will you need to do things differently to get your job done? This is a chance to identify your work priorities and raise any concerns or questions you have. Next slide, please. So keeping in touch with your colleagues and your line manager. You don't need to talk about work, but a quick check-in will help you feel connected. The way we all work is likely to keep changing in the coming weeks, so we need to keep adjusting. Don't expect everything to quickly return to normal. We may not be able to get back to our old ways of working, but this could give us an opportunity to do things differently and maybe even better. Look out for yourself, look out for others, and take each day at a time. Bye, please. So the next slide starts with "and finally," but actually I've got something else after this as well. So finally, if you feel your employer has not addressed any concerns, you can contact your local authority or the Health and Safety Executive. Other links offer support with rights, responsibilities, and advice regarding making adjustments to how you do your work. Before I hand back over to Rena, though, I'd like to read a case study. So this is from a colleague who's working with somebody who's had to deal with different situations due to kind of being on furlough and working from home. So the candidate was referred to us as a job retention case. So job retention is for somebody that's in work but is worried about losing their job due to ill health or stress, and their boss is not necessarily understanding what their situation is. A situation was having a negative effect on her mental health. She's in her mid-30s and is working in fashion as an art director. She's worked for the same company for 8 years, and our initial appointments were around her relationship with a manager and the manager's non-conformance with her employment rights. my candidate had tried to resign, but the manager had stated that there would be a 6 months notice period. So the candidate felt she had no choice but to plough on, but this was making her feel. We resolved these issues and the candidate was happy in work as the manager had moved on as a result of the candidate raising concerns higher up. But 5 weeks after that last meeting, the candidate messaged me for some more advice. Told me that she'd been put on furlough due to COVID, but her manager has said that all staff had to use their holiday entitlement during the time that they're on furlough, meaning that when they return to work, they would not have any holiday entitlement for the rest of the year. With guidance and information changing on a daily basis, the candidate said she was not sure if her employer could do this or not, and needed information and guidance if they were going to challenge it. I provided the candidate with information about holiday entitlement in England and Wales as governed by the Working Time Regulations 1998. I informed the candidate that the government's guidance on the job retention scheme, which is furlough, states that employees that have been furloughed have the same rights as they did previously. I advised the candidate to speak to their manager in the first instance. We made a list of what current law is and points to make. This process added to the candidate's confidence to make an approach and speak to her manager. Being able to apply existing and emerging employment law to the furlough situation quickly meant the candidate was not adversely affected. The impact of the intervention affected employees and the whole organisation, and the candidate got positive responses from the management, who sent an email to all staff stating that asking staff to use holidays as part of furlough was a mistake and entitlement would not be affected. Candidate has used this time away from work to look at other employment as she feels it's time to move on, and I will continue to support. So that's just a little kind of a real life situation where somebody used or wasn't afraid to answer advice and support to improve their work situation, which in turn helped to improve their mental health. So I hope that's been helpful. On the slides that I've provided, EA&I Act is who I am, and you'll see Matt's email address. If you've got any questions or need further support on anything that I've spoken about, you can drop an email to that address and I'll receive it. So with that, I say thank you and hand you back to Rena.
Thank you very much, Rob, for useful and helpful information and case studies. Just now, we'll try to introduce you to another mindfulness exercise to be able to maintain our well-being. It's called Leaves on the Stream. It's a metaphor. The leaves on the stream metaphor is often used as an exercise to help us distance ourselves from our almost constant stream of thoughts, to stand back and observe our thoughts rather than get caught up in them. We can notice that thoughts are simply thoughts, passing streams of words that we don't need to react to. We can just notice them. So again, please skip this exercise when you do not feel comfortable doing it. So only please join this exercise only when you think you are ready. So now sit in a comfortable posture with your spine erect. Let the shoulders drop. Gently close your eyes if it feels comfortable for you, or fix them on the spot. Now imagine you are sitting by the side of a gently flowing stream, and there are leaves flowing past on the surface of the stream. Imagine it however you like. It's your imagination, but try to make it as vivid as possible. While sitting quietly, bring your focus to your breath. Then start to notice the thoughts that come into your mind. As you notice each thought, imagine putting those words onto a leaf as it floats by on a stream. Do this whether the thoughts are negative or positive, pleasurable or painful. Even if they are the most wonderful thoughts, place them on the leaf and let them float by. Put each thought that you notice onto a leaf and watch it drift on by. There's no need to look for the thoughts or to remain alert waiting for them to come. If your thoughts stop, just watch the stream. Sooner or later, your thoughts will start up again. Allow the stream to flow at its own rate. Don't try to speed it up. You are not trying to wash the leaves away. You are allowing them to come and go in their own good time. If your mind say, "This is stupid," or "I cannot do this," just place those thoughts on the leaf and let them float by. If a difficult feeling arises, such as boredom or impatience, simply acknowledge it. Say to yourself, "Here is a feeling of boredom," or "Here is a feeling of impatience." Then place those words on a leaf and then let the leaf float by. From time to time, your attention will wander, particularly so at first, and that's okay. It's what our mind does, and it will keep happening. As soon as you notice your mind wandering, just gently bring your focus back to the thoughts and placing them onto the leaves. After a few minutes or even few seconds, bring your attention back to your breath for a moment. Then slowly open your eyes and become more aware of your environment. So I'm wondering how you feel right now. I hope that you are able to focus on your mind at the present and focusing on your feelings and thoughts, just to observe them and placing on the leaves and floats by. So I'd really like to encourage you to take care of yourself when you feel going through a difficult moments, such as like long COVID or unemployment. It's just the stressful circumstances or lockdown or pandemic. It is so important to do this self-care techniques to manage our own well-beings. So I'd like to do a little summary of self-care and well-being now. In this webinar, we looked at a crucial role of awareness for helping us to identify the emotions we are experiencing so that we can have responsibility and also choose how to take care of ourselves and feel safe. We have considered that we may experience a range of emotions as difficult and uncomfortable, including emotions like love and joy, as well as other emotions that some might label negative. We affirm that all our emotions are valid and a normal part of being human. And we practice a range of different self-soothing and grounding exercises to help us sit with our feelings and make them easier to manage. For example, the 5 senses exercise, leave on the stream. There is other visualization exercises I can show you in the next slide. And lastly, our intention was to affirm self-care as being a crucial part of dealing with difficult emotions and challenging moments. And I hope that you have been able to find at least one tool, through thought or insight that can support you in the coming weeks and months. And I have the next slide, please, Anne. Okay, these are the further information on the further exercises, and I think you may get this information online, but it's a technique, it's the skill that you can use to manage our well-being whenever you feel anxious or you go and encounter with difficult emotions. So it's worth trying if you are ready for it. Now I would like to hand over to you, Matt, and he can give us today's webinar's recap.
Thanks, Rena. Thank you, Rob. It's been particularly useful, I hope, and everyone has taken something from today. So we do thank you for your time today. What we've wanted to do is highlight that whilst long COVID is an awful and at times debilitating illness, there is still plenty of guidance and support available to help you move forward, particularly around employment. We hope that mindfulness and wellbeing tips will prove useful, as we all see how important it is to take care of yourself mentally as well as physically. It really, to us, does underpin everything. So thanks everyone for coming along today. It's been a pleasure to deliver it to you, and we really do hope that you've profited from it. What we've got now is some time set aside for any questions. So what we're going to do is ask you to put questions into the chat function, and our colleague Iris is going to pick those up and sort of pass them on to whichever one of us might be best placed to help you. So so yes, that's available now. Any questions, please fire away. I'm just hoping that people are typing. I realise that coming through a chat function might be just slightly slower naturally than speaking. So essentially, again, what we've looked at today, particularly around employment, is the difficulty. What we've tried to do is incorporate the areas and around employment, and the three areas of working from home, being furloughed, and having sadly lost your jobs, and the fact that no one could have in any way have seen, say, 18 months ago that this was perhaps likely to have happened at all. So life has changed for us, and employment law is changing as well. So we have seen an awful lot of changes, and I'm sure many of you at home are directly affected by that. And of course, maybe and hopefully not, but possibly been affected in employment with regard to long COVID. Again, it's an entirely new illness that's hit society, and we're as I was saying earlier, we're trying to find out really what it's all about. Well, not me, but very clever people, scientists are trying to find out what it's all about, and really how this is going to affect society, and how it's going to affect people's role in society. But in order to do that, we have to have information and data collected for people that have suffered for a year. And as we all know, this has been slightly over a year that we've been in this, so it is particularly difficult to gather data and collect any information quickly. But that is being collected now. As I said earlier, studies commissioned are going to take 2 to 3 years. So this is really something that we are going to have to live with, as the Prime Minister said. And what we suspect is that the way that we hope to get out of this is should people choose to take the vaccinations, which is entirely people's choices individually, but that there may well be booster vaccinations coming up later in the year, and maybe in line with flu. People will have different a booster vaccination every year, like as I say, the flu vaccine does. So it is sadly going to be part of life, and something that our mindsets are all going to have to change with regard to how we connect with people, how we think about keeping calm, how we think about maintaining our physical health and our mental health, how we keep control of ourselves, and how we deal with our working situations. It is hard. As you are making this hard for me at the moment, as I'm talking incessantly. Okay, I'm going to work on the presumption that there aren't any questions. If you're a slow typist, I apologise sincerely, but if something does come through, we can pick it up and we can get back to you. But thank you ever so much, everyone, for coming along today. We're going to say goodbye. So
there's one question.
Oh,
sorry.
there is. Apologies.
Iris,
Sorry,
do you
everyone.
want to read it?
Yeah, we've got a comment. I have been absent from work for some time, and although I have a fit note and have been signed off by occupational health, I am experiencing a lot of resistance bordering on stonewalling from HR in particular. So it's someone who's in the situation right now, obviously not being in work, but I gather that I don't know what stonewalling is really like, but maybe you know the term, Matt. Maybe you've come across it. That it's not being accepted, I guess, or whatever, not being in work or something like this with a certificate.
I think in this case, and I might be wrong, I think stonewalling is been deflected, and the issues that sorry, I missed the name if there was a name, and the issues that you're having may be deflected. I think in this situation, if they are, and you're having an issue with your personnel HR department, I would try and seek some further advice and guidance. You could do that through perhaps the CAB, or if there is a legal advice team in your area, which would be able to give employment advice. I think that would be a good step for you to take. I think if you are being stonewalled, and if I am interpreting that right, your issues are being deflected by HR. I think that is employability. That probably is an employability in law issue, and I really do think that you should gain the necessary advice. As I say, start with CAB. If there is a law centre near to you, which will be free at the point of use for you, they would be the best places to start, and I really do hope that helps. Sorry if I have misinterpreted it or missed anything, but that would be my advice on that particular for that particular question. I hope that helps. Do you have anything else, Iris? Anne?
Yeah, how to recommend is best to do a phased return? Do you have any tips around different maybe ways of doing a phased return?
Phased return, Rob, pick me up if you know anything more than this. I think phased returns are going to have to be sorted out between yourselves and your managerial team at work. It is something that needs to be thought through carefully, and you need to have an agreement and a buy-in and an agreement as to how this is done, so that you do feel comfortable coming back into the workplace as well. I'm taking it that you might have been unwell. It might not be the case. You might just be coming back to work, as we all are at the moment, through working from home. So in which case, as Rob said, I'll give it to Rob in a second. I'll hand over to Rob in a second. But as Rob said, to think about the situation at work, what has been put in place, how many people are coming back, when they're coming back, what the types of bubbles are in place, the bubbles for that are in place for certain people to be working on certain days, whether there is a plan in place for should the situation change on the 21st of June. Which may well happen, and there may be a massive relaxation of what we're living under at the moment, the rules, but may not, as we hear this morning. So, Rob, is there anything else that
I would just say if you've been off sick with COVID or with anything, a phase return is part of a reasonable adjustment, so it enables you to do your job to the best of your ability. So it's something that should happen as a matter of course, like with employment law. If not, in the slides there were the contact details for access to work. They will, if you contact them, they will, or they're able, if you want them to contact your employer and educate your employer in what that actually means. And it's a free service, and yeah, so a phased return should be part of your return to work anyway if you've been off sick. If it's because of COVID and you've been working from home or furloughed and it's just kind of getting back into a routine, again, that's one of the things I talked about earlier. So again, it's something that's it's not law, but it's in place for the government have said employers have to take into account individual needs. So if there's a reason for it to happen, then you can again have that discussion, and if you're not happy with that, then you'd contact the health and safety executive or your local authority just to say that they're not, your employees not doing what they're supposed to in regards to your safe return.
There's an add-on around return to work. Someone wrote, I haven't had a paycheck in over 6 months, and even my conversations with my line manager have been circulatory as of late. The return to work form was countersigned 2 months ago. So I suspect that there's someone who wants to probably come back, but something for whatever reason isn't happening. Sounds quite unusual. I don't know, Rob, what are your thoughts around this?
If you haven't had just in general, if you're on furlough and your organization, your company have brought in or a part of the job safety scheme, so keeping jobs open, and they're taking or they've applied to the government for the 80% to cover furlough, then you should be receiving that money. So at worst, that if it's a matter of you've been working from home or what, basically that's, if you haven't been paid in 6 months and you're on furlough, then that's fraud and they're breaking the law. If you've been working from home and you haven't been paid for 6 months and it's a standard contract where you get paid monthly, then that's an issue that goes, that's an employment law issue. If it's that you've been just kind of, I don't know your line of work, so again, it's one of those that's, it's quite an individual thing. If it's that you're paid on a ad hoc basis or on it's piecework, you get paid on jobs done, and or a 0-hour contract, then again, that's something that I'd probably take to your CAB, because again, I'd need more information basically about what your work is and how you'd normally get paid. But to just not be paid for 6 months for your normal contract, if you're on furlough, you're coming in the law basically.
I haven't seen anything further, so thank you very much for our experts. If you would like to take a look regarding this recording, we've placed where to find it in the question and answer session. So thank you again to Robert, Matthew and Rena. Rob, Matt, Rena, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye now.